At 3 in the morning, I woke up to the sound of my son's voice in the hallway. He was whispering on the phone. "Doctor, my mother is completely unstable. She is delirious, inventing things. She is not sleeping. I need to have her committed before it is too late." What happened in the next 36 hours destroyed him in a way that not even I imagined was possible. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 68 years old, and I never thought I would write these words. My only son wanted to erase me from life as if I were a nuisance. Everything started that early morning. The clock read 7 minutes past 3 in the morning when I opened my eyes. I do not know what woke me up first, whether it was the cold coming through the poorly closed window of my bedroom or that inexplicable feeling that something was wrong. Very wrong. My house in Westchester has always been quiet at night. Too quiet since I was widowed 3 years ago. But that early morning I heard footsteps. Slow, calculated, like someone who does not want to be discovered. I barely sat up, my heart pumping hard against my ribs. My bedroom door was slightly ajar. I always lock it, and through the crack I saw a sliver of light coming from the hallway. Then I heard him, Julian's voice. My son, my only son, 42 years old, the boy I held in my arms, the man I gave everything I had and everything I am. He was whispering, and what he was whispering froze my blood. "Doctor, I need you to understand the urgency. My mother is completely unstable." I froze, clutching the sheet tight between my fingers. "Unstable? Me?" "She is constantly delirious," Julian continued, and his voice sounded calm, almost professional. "She invents things, mixes up dates. Yesterday, she called me by my dead father's name. She does not sleep well. She wakes up in the middle of the night, saying she hears noises." I felt as if ice water had been thrown over me. Every word was a perfectly constructed lie. I slept fine, my memories were intact. I had never called him by Arthur's name, my late husband. "I need to have her committed before it is too late," Julian said, and there was a pause. "Yes, I understand the procedure takes time, but she has valuable properties and, well, I do not want her to do something irreversible during an episode of confusion. Sign something. Donate something. Do you understand me?" There it was. The naked, raw truth like a slap in the face. He did not care about my health. He cared about my money. I got out of bed quietly, my legs shaking. I walked barefoot to the door and peeked out just a little. Julian had his back to me, facing the hallway window, with the phone pressed to his ear and one hand in the pocket of his pajama pants. "The clinic in upstate New York that you recommended sounds ideal," he continued. "Isolated, discreet. No one will ask questions. No one will ask questions." Those 5 words dropped like stones in my stomach. "Figure about 6 months for the whole process," Julian said, and then let out a low laugh that I had never heard from him before. A dark, unfamiliar laugh. "Once she is committed and I have the power of attorney, the rest will be simple. The house in Westchester is worth about $5 million, doctor. $5 million, and she has it in my name in the will, but I need her to be legally incapacitated to move the other properties. $5 million. That was what I was to him. A number, a bank account with legs. I leaned against the wall because I felt my knees giving out. 68 years building a life, building a textile business from the ground up, raising a son as a single mother for 10 years until I met Arthur, smartly investing every dollar we earned together. And everything was reduced to $5 million in the mouth of my own son? "No, no," Julian said into the phone, and his tone became more conspiratorial. "My wife Victoria is completely on board. She was the one who researched the clinics, actually. She says my mother was always controlling and now, with her age, she has become unbearable. Imagine living in her house, doctor, in our 40s. Victoria wants independence. So do I. Victoria, my 38-year-old daughter-in-law, with her perfect dental office smile and her always flawless nails. The woman who walked into my house 5 years ago, saying she admired me, that I was the mother-in-law she had always dreamed of. All lies. Next Friday I will bring the signed papers," Julian said. "Yes, I trust you, Dr. Sterling. A very reliable colleague recommended you to me. This will stay between us. Absolute discretion." He hung up. I slipped back into my room immediately, closed the door quietly, and collapsed onto the bed. My hands were shaking so much I had to sit on them. My heart was beating so hard I thought Julian would hear it from the hallway. I breathed. 1, 2, 3 times, deeply. I did not cry. Not yet. The shock was too great for tears. My mind was racing at 1,000 miles an hour. Julian was planning to commit me, declare me incapacitated, take away my freedom, my dignity, my life. And Victoria was his accomplice. How long had they been planning this? Weeks? Months? I got up and walked over to the vanity. I looked at myself in the mirror. A 68-year-old woman, with gray hair pulled back in a loose braid, wrinkles around her eyes that Arthur used to kiss tenderly, and a gaze that had just discovered what betrayal is in its purest form early that morning. I was not senile. I was not confused. I was perfectly lucid, and I had just heard my son sell me like livestock. I opened the vanity drawer and took out my address book. There were the numbers of my accountant, my lawyer, my notary, people who had known me for decades, people who knew exactly who Eleanor Vance was, a woman who built a textile empire with her bare hands, who negotiated multi-million-dollar contracts, who never signed a piece of paper without reading it 3 times. I looked at the clock, 13 minutes to 4 in the morning. In less than 40 minutes, my life had been split in 2, before that call and after it. I sat on the bed, clutching the notebook to my chest, and finally the tears came. Silent, hot, bitter. I cried for the son I thought I had. I cried for the family I thought we were. I cried for the naivety of believing that love is enough. But something else was being born inside me as I cried. Something cold and solid like steel. A certainty. Julian had made a mistake. A massive mistake. He underestimated me. And over the next 36 hours, he was going to find out who his mother really was. If this story is hooking you, and you want to know how Eleanor turned this betrayal around, subscribe to the channel. Here we share true stories of women who rose up when everyone else gave them up for lost. Do not miss the next chapter. But what I did not know that early morning was that Julian's plan was already in motion, and it was much more sinister than I imagined. I did not sleep a wink the rest of that night. I sat in bed, my back against the carved wooden headboard that Arthur gave me on our 15th anniversary, and my brain worked like it had not in years. Businesswoman. That is what I was for 40 years of my life. Not a confused little old lady. A woman who managed inventories, payrolls, contracts with overseas suppliers who barely spoke English. A woman who negotiated every square foot of this house until she got a fair price. And that woman was not going to let herself be buried alive. At 6:30 in the morning, I heard movement in the kitchen. Victoria always got up early to make her green smoothie and do her beauty rituals. Julian, on the other hand, slept until 8 if he could. I got up, put on my burgundy robe, the one Julian gave me for Mother's Day last year. What irony. And I walked down the stairs trying to make my footsteps sound normal, calm, like any other morning. Victoria was in the kitchen, standing in front of the blender, wearing her pearl gray yoga pants and her hair pulled up in a high ponytail. She did not even turn around when I walked in. "Good morning," I said, in the most neutral voice I could manage. She turned her head and I swear I saw something in her eyes, a gleam of evaluation, as if she were studying my every move. "Eleanor, you are up early," she said, and her smile did not reach her eyes. "Did you sleep well?" A trap, the first of the day. "Like always," I replied, and took my favorite mug out of the cabinet, the ceramic one with yellow flowers I bought in Santa Fe. "I am going to make some coffee. Do you want some?" "No, thank you. You know I do not drink caffeine." I knew. Victoria did not drink caffeine. She did not eat sugar. She did not consume carbs after 6. She controlled every aspect of her life with surgical precision, except her ambition, that she let run wild. I poured my coffee in silence, while she continued blending her spinach with banana and whatever else. The noise of the blender filled the kitchen, but the silence between us was deafening. When she turned off the appliance, Victoria poured her green drink into a tall glass and leaned against the granite counter. She was watching me. I could feel her eyes drilling into me, while I pretended to concentrate on sweetening my coffee. "Eleanor," she finally said, and her voice sounded soft, almost maternal. Julian and I are worried about you." There it was. The theater was starting. I looked up, with my best face of innocent confusion. "Worried? Why?" "You are more forgetful. Yesterday, you asked Julian 3 times what time we were having dinner. The day before yesterday, you left the key in the front door lock all night. Lies. All perfectly constructed lies." "Really?" I let my voice tremble just a bit. "No, I do not remember that." I saw her eyes light up. A small victory for her. "That is why we worry, mother-in-law." She put her hand on my shoulder, and I had to make a superhuman effort not to pull away. Age catches up with everyone. It is nothing to be ashamed of. But maybe you should see a specialist. Just to rule things out. Specialist. Dr. Sterling, surely. "You think so?" I asked, and put my hand to my temple as if my head hurt. "It is just that lately I do feel a little confused." I lied, but I needed to see how far her nerve went. Victoria practically glowed with satisfaction. "Look, I know an excellent doctor, very discreet. Julian already spoke with him. We could get you an appointment for this week." This week, they were in a deadly hurry. Just then Julian walked in, still in sweatpants and with messy hair. He looked at me with a smile that used to melt my heart and now made me nauseous. "Mom, good morning. How did you sleep?" he said, as if he had not sold me out 3 hours earlier for $5 million. "Fine. My son," I answered, and I hated how my voice automatically softened with him. 42 years of maternal conditioning. Victoria says I have been forgetful. Julian exchanged a look with his wife. Quick, but I saw it. A look of complicity. "Well, Mom, we all get older. Nothing serious." He poured himself some coffee from the pot I had made. "But it would not hurt to get checked out, right?" I nodded, submissive, obedient. Inside I was taking mental notes of every word, every gesture, every lie. We ate breakfast together, pastries that Victoria did not touch and chopped fruit that I barely tasted. Julian checked his phone constantly. Victoria watched me like a hawk watches a wounded mouse. When we finished, Julian wiped his mouth with a napkin and said, with rehearsed casualness, "By the way, Mom, do you remember the rehab clinic in upstate New York that we visited when Uncle Thomas was sick?" We had not visited any clinic. Uncle Thomas died at home, surrounded by family. "Which clinic?" I asked, genuinely confused this time. Julian smiled. Another victory for him. "Never mind, Mom. Get some rest." They went to their room. I stayed in the kitchen, my hands gripping the coffee mug until my knuckles turned white. I waited 20 minutes. Then I went up to my room and, instead of lying down, went straight to my study. The small room where I kept all my important documents. I took out the navy blue folder with my deeds. The house in Westchester, in my name. A commercial space in Soho that rented for $8,000 a month, in my name. Bank accounts, in my name. Investments, in my name. Everything was fine, for now. But then I saw something that chilled my spine. On my desk, where I never left anything out of place, was a beige folder I did not recognize. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside were blank medical forms with the letterhead of Dr. Richard Sterling, Psychiatry and Neurology, and a handwritten note in Victoria's handwriting. Appointment, Friday, June 15th, 10 in the morning. Bring patient identification. Today was Tuesday, June 12th. I had 3 days left, 3 days before they tried to lock me away. But what they did not know was that I had already started making moves. And my first move would catch them completely off guard. On Thursday morning, Julian walked into my room with a smile that would have seemed charming if I did not know what it hid. "Mom, I have a surprise for you. We are going to have breakfast at your favorite spot." The Main Street Diner, the place where I had eaten breakfast every Saturday for 30 years. Where the waitresses knew me by name, where I had my favorite table by the window. Where Arthur proposed to me one October morning while I was dipping my toast in coffee with milk. "To the Main Street Diner?" I asked, and my voice sounded genuinely excited because a part of me, the part that still wanted to believe this was a nightmare, hoped that maybe, just maybe, my son was still my son. "Yes, we will get you dressed up nicely and go. Victoria is already ready. I should have known. When a predator invites you to a public place, it is because they need witnesses. I put on my beige outfit, dress pants, and a silk blouse. I pulled my hair back into an elegant bun and even put on a little makeup. If I was going to fall, I would fall with dignity. We arrived at the diner at 10:30. The place smelled like it always did, of freshly brewed coffee, baked muffins, and that mix of perfumes and colognes from people eating a late breakfast. The terracotta walls, the red and white checkered tablecloths, the constant murmur of conversations. My place, my refuge. Julian took my arm, too firmly, and guided me toward a table in the middle. Not my usual table, the middle of the dining room, where everyone could see us. And there they were, the doctor. Richard Sterling, a man in his 50s with dark glasses and a gray suit, was already seated. Next to him, a woman Victoria introduced as my sister Claire, who came especially from out of state. Witnesses. They had brought witnesses. Mrs. Vance, what a pleasure to meet you, Dr. Sterling said, extending his hand. His handshake was professional, firm, and completely fake. Julian has told me a lot about you. I bet he has. We sat down, me between Julian and Victoria, as if I were being escorted, the doctor and Claire across from us. Sarah, the waitress who had known me since she was 20 and was working to pay for college, came over with her notepad. She saw me and her face lit up. Mrs. Vance, it has been a while. Your usual table is— No, Sarah, thank you, Julian interrupted, with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Today we are staying here. My mom needs to have company. I saw the confusion on Sarah's face. She knew I always came alone, that I liked my privacy, my corner by the window. What will you order? She asked, uncomfortably. Before I could open my mouth, Victoria spoke for me. Chamomile tea and toast for her. Lately, coffee has been upsetting her stomach. A lie. I had been drinking coffee since I was 15, and it had never upset my stomach. But I started. Mom, Julian put his hand on my shoulder, squeezing. Tea is good for you, you know that. Sarah looked at me, waiting for me to confirm or deny. I saw the question in her eyes. I nodded, because I needed to see how far this went. She wrote it down and left, shooting me one last worried glance. Then the show started. Dr. Sterling, Victoria said, in her softest, most concerned voice. As I mentioned on the phone, Mother Eleanor's behavior has us very anxious. The diner was full, table after table of people eating breakfast, reading the newspaper, drinking their coffee, and everyone was starting to turn toward us because Victoria was not speaking quietly. She spoke at that perfectly calculated volume to be heard at nearby tables. Tell me, the doctor said, pulling out a notepad, as if this were a real consultation. Well? Julian leaned forward, and his acting was so convincing I almost applauded him. Yesterday my mom asked me where my dad was. My father died 3 years ago, doctor. She was at the funeral. The neighboring tables were no longer trying to hide it. They were staring at us openly. And the day before yesterday, Victoria continued, she left the stove burners on all afternoon. We could have had a fire. Thank God we got there in time. I had not cooked since Tuesday. I had been in my room, planning, thinking. She forgot to take her medications 3 days in a row, Julian added, and his voice sounded hurt, like a concerned son. Her blood pressure pills. We have set alarms on her cell phone, but she ignores them. I did not take blood pressure medication. My blood pressure was perfect, 120/80 at my last checkup. Dr. Sterling wrote everything down, nodding gravely. Have you noticed temporal disorientation? He asked. Constantly, Victoria answered immediately. Yesterday she thought it was Sunday when it was Wednesday. She tried to go to church in the morning. Victoria's sister, Claire, added her 2 cents. I saw her last week, and she asked me 3 times what my children's names were. My children, who she has known since they were babies. I had never seen that woman in my life. Sarah arrived with our orders. She placed the chamomile tea and toast in front of me with an apologetic look. She served the others their coffees and omelets. When she left, Julian did something that shattered me to pieces. He leaned toward me, took a paper napkin, and wiped the corner of my lips. Slowly, delicately, like you do to a baby. You have a little spot, Mom, he said with fake tenderness. I did not have any spot. I had not even tasted anything yet. But the tables around us saw a loving son cleaning up his elderly, confused mother. I saw an older woman at the next table whisper to her companion, looking at me with pity. I saw a man in a suit shake his head sadly. I saw Sarah, my Sarah who knew me, looking at me with damp eyes. "Mrs. Vance," Dr. Sterling said, speaking loudly and slowly to me, the way you speak to a small child. "Do you know what day today is?" "Thursday," I replied firmly. "Thursday of what month?" "June." "Very good. And do you know where you are?" I was filled with rage, a white, hot rage that rose from my stomach to my throat. "I am at the Main Street Diner," I said, raising my voice. "The exact same place I have been coming to for 30 years. The same table where my husband proposed to me. And I know perfectly well that you, doctor, are a fraud that my son hired to." "Mom, please." Julian squeezed my arm, hard, and his voice sounded embarrassed. "Do not make a scene. I am not making any scene." "This is exactly what I mean, doctor," Victoria interrupted, and there were tears, actual tears, in her eyes. "Paranoia, aggressiveness. She thinks we are all conspiring against her." The entire restaurant was watching us, 40, 50 people, witnessing my supposed dementia. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I stood tall. "I am going to the restroom," I said. "I will go with you." Victoria stood up immediately. "I can go by myself." "Mother Eleanor, you know the doctor says you should not. I can go by myself." My shout echoed through the diner. Absolute silence, all eyes glued to me. Julian stood up, gently taking me by the shoulders to sit me back down. "It is okay, Mom. It is okay. No one is going to hurt you. Calm down." He spoke like you speak to a frightened animal, and I sat down, because everyone was looking at me like I was crazy, like I was dangerous, like I needed to be controlled. Sarah approached nervously. "Is everything all right, Mr. Julian?" "Yes, thank you, Sarah. My mom just needs to rest." She did not ask me. She asked my son. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Not the humiliation, not the lies, but seeing in Sarah's eyes, my Sarah's eyes, that she too believed I was incapacitated. I sat there the rest of the breakfast, quiet, broken. They kept talking about treatment options and specialized clinics and what was best for Mom. When we got up to leave, I saw my reflection in the wall mirror. A scared, confused old woman escorted by her worried family. Exactly what they wanted everyone to see. I walked out of that diner with my head held high, but inside I was destroyed because they had just stolen something more valuable than money. They stole my dignity, in front of people who knew me, in front of my city. But what Julian and Victoria did not know was that every second of that humiliation had been recorded, because I was not the only one who suspected them, and help would come from the most unexpected place. I did not eat dinner that night. I could not. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the pitying looks at the Main Street Diner. I heard Julian's voice talking to Sarah as if I did not exist. I locked myself in my room starting at 7 in the evening, telling them I had a headache. Victoria knocked on my door twice to check on me. I answered that I just needed to sleep, but I did not sleep. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, while listening to the sounds of my own house, the television in the living room, Victoria's laughter, Julian's footsteps coming up the stairs at 11 at night. I waited, with my heart pounding, my fists clutching the sheets. I waited until everything was silent. The digital clock on my nightstand read 2:17 in the morning when I finally got up. I did not turn on the light. I already knew every inch of this house. I had lived here for 22 years. I knew exactly where the hardwood floor in the hallway creaked, which step groaned if you stepped on the left side. I went down barefoot, hugging the wall, breathing slowly so as not to make a sound. Julian's office was on the ground floor, next to the library. It was a room that used to be Arthur's study, where he drew architectural plans, and I reviewed the finances for my textile business. When Julian moved in with us 5 years ago, temporarily, he said, while he found his own house, Arthur gave him that space. Temporarily became permanent, and now that room held my son's secrets. The door was cracked open. How careless, or how confident. I slipped in quietly and closed it slowly behind me. The curtains were open, and enough streetlight came in to see without needing to turn on the lamp. Julian's desk was dark mahogany, inherited from his grandfather. Ironic. Using family furniture to plan how to get rid of his family, I started looking. First, the drawers. Invoices, receipts, paperwork from Julian's job at the construction firm. Nothing important. Second drawer. Client contracts, project folders. Nothing either. The third drawer, the bottom one, was locked. Of course. I looked around, searching for where he might hide a key. I checked under the pen holder, behind the books on the bookshelf, inside the decorative vase in the corner. Nothing. I was about to give up when I remembered something. Ever since he was a little boy, Julian always hid important things in the exact same place, taped to the underside of furniture. He did it with his allowance, with the trading cards he liked as a kid, with everything he wanted to protect. I knelt down. My knees protested, and I reached under the desk. There it was, a small key held by duct tape. I peeled it off carefully and unlocked the drawer. And there, as if waiting for me, was a thick brown folder. On the cover, written in black marker and Victoria's handwriting, Mom Commitment Project. As if I were an engineering problem to solve. I pulled it out with shaking hands and opened it on the desk. The first page was an index. Organized, meticulous, professional. 1. Medical evaluations. Dr. Richard Sterling. Pages 1 through 24. 2. Testimonies of cognitive decline. Pages 25 through 47. 3. Photographic and video evidence. Pages 48 through 89. 4. Legal documentation. Power of attorney. Pages 90 through 112. 5. Property sale contract. Pages 113 through 135. 6. Commitment budget and expenses. Pages 136 through 158. 7. Plan timeline. Pages 159 through 186. 186 pages. 186 pages dedicated to erasing me. I started reading. The medical evaluations were fake reports signed by Dr. Sterling. Patient Eleanor Vance shows advanced signs of senile dementia, short-term memory loss, temporal and spatial disorientation, episodes of aggressiveness. I recommend immediate commitment. Dated 3 weeks ago. I had never even visited that doctor. I kept turning the pages. The testimonies were written statements, supposedly from neighbors and acquaintances. Mrs. Vance forgot my name last week. I saw her wandering confused down the street. She tried to pay at the supermarket with bills from 20 years ago, all made up, but with signatures. Names I recognized. Mrs. Henderson from the corner, Joe from the deli, even the owner of the dry cleaners. Had they been paid off? Or did they just forge the signatures? I reached the video section. There were printed screenshots. I saw myself in different situations, but the contexts were cut. An image of me in the kitchen looking confused. The description read, "Patient does not remember how to use the coffee maker." I remembered that moment. I was looking for my glasses. It had nothing to do with the coffee maker. Another video. Me in the garden, looking around. Disoriented patient does not recognize her own home. A lie. I was looking to see if the landscaper had arrived. They had documented my life for weeks, recording me, editing, lying. But the worst came next. In the legal documentation section, I found a sales contract. My house. My house in Westchester that was worth $5 million, according to the latest appraisal. The price on the contract was $3.5 million, $1.5 million less than its real value. The buyer was a company called JV Architecture Developments. JV, Julian Victoria. They were going to buy my house themselves. With my own money, probably. Once they had the power of attorney. My hands were shaking so badly I had to lean against the desk. I took a deep breath and kept reading. The budget section was obscene. They had calculated everything. Commitment to Spring Repose Clinic, upstate New York, $15,000 a month. Medications and care, $3,000 a month. Estimated commitment time, 18 to 24 months. The necessary time to process sales and transfers. Total approximate cost, $300,000. And then, handwritten by Victoria, recoverable from the sale of the commercial space in Soho. They were going to use my own money to lock me up. But I still had not reached the worst part. At the end of the folder, tucked between the last pages, I found a manila envelope. I opened it. Inside were printouts of text messages between Julian and Victoria. I read them all. Each one felt like a knife. Victoria: "Did you talk to Sterling yet?" Julian: "Yes. He says the videos are enough. We sign on Friday." Victoria: "Perfect. I want out of this house so badly. Your mother suffocates me." Julian: "Relax. In 6 months we will own everything." Victoria: "What if she gets difficult? What if she refuses?" Julian: "She will not refuse. We will sedate her if necessary." Victoria: "Your mom is a rich nuisance, my love. Nothing more." Julian: "I know. But a nuisance that will soon cease to be one." I kept reading. I could not stop, even though every word tore me apart. Victoria: "Do you think she suspects anything?" Julian: "My mom? Please. She was always weak, submissive. This will be easier than I thought." Those words. She was always weak. From my son. From the boy I had at 26 years old. From the baby I breastfed for 2 years because we had no money for formula. From the teenager I supported when everyone told him he would amount to nothing. From the man whose entire architecture degree I paid for by working 16 hours a day at my garment factory. Weak. I found one last note, handwritten by Julian on a yellow sticky note attached to the last page. Reminder: "Mom signs whatever is put in front of her if you ask nicely. It has always been that way." There will be no problem. That is where I broke down. I did not cry yet. It was worse than crying. I sat on the floor of that office with the folder open on my lap and felt something inside me shatter into pieces so small I did not know if I could ever put them back together. My son. My only son. The clock on the wall read 3:42 in the morning. I took pictures of every page with my cell phone. Every document. Every message. Every lie. I put everything back exactly as it was. I locked the drawer again. I taped the key back under the desk. I went upstairs to my room like a ghost. I sat on the edge of the bed with the phone in my hands, looking at the photos I had just taken. 186 pages of evidence that to my son, I was not his mother. I was an obstacle between him and $5 million. Finally, I cried. In silence, with my face in my hands, I cried until my ribs hurt. I cried for the Eleanor who believed love was enough. But when the sun came up, that Eleanor no longer existed. What Julian never imagined was that the weak woman he remembered died that early morning. And the one who woke up at dawn was someone completely different. Someone he should have feared from the beginning. On Friday morning, with swollen eyes from crying and a shattered heart, I made a decision. I needed help, real help. Not from lawyers I had not contacted yet, not from strangers. I needed family. I needed Margaret. My younger sister, 3 years younger than me. The little girl I took care of when our parents died in that accident. The teenager whose high school tuition I paid when I was barely 20 years old and working sewing clothes in a sweatshop. The woman I loaned $20,000 when her husband lost his job and never paid me back because I told her it did not matter, that we were sisters. Margaret had lived in Boston for 15 years. We talked on the phone every Sunday. She sent me pictures of her grandchildren. I sent her money every birthday, every Christmas, every time she mentioned a need. We were the only ones left in our family. The only Vances with our parents' blood. I dialed her number at 9 in the morning. From my bedroom with the door locked. "Eleanor?" Her voice sounded surprised. I never called her during the week. "What happened? Are you okay?" And right there, with my sister on the phone, I broke down. I told her everything. The 3 in the morning phone call. The humiliating breakfast at the Main Street diner. The folder I found. The 186 pages of betrayal. The messages from Julian and Victoria. The plan to commit me. Everything. I cried so much I could barely speak. Margaret listened in silence, only interrupting with gasps of horror. "That is impossible," she kept saying. "Not Julian. Not your son. I saw it with my own eyes, Maggie. The proof is right there. They want to take everything from me. my house, my freedom, my life. There was a long silence. Then I heard my sister's voice, firm and protective, like when we were girls, and she used to defend me on the playground. I am coming over there. Today. I am not going to leave you alone in this. Something in my chest loosened. I was not alone. I had Margaret. Would you really come? I am already looking for bus tickets. I will get there tonight. Do not say a word to Julian or Victoria. Let it be a surprise. We hung up, and for the first time in days, I felt something resembling hope. My sister was coming. The woman who knew me before Julian even existed. Before Arthur. Before everything. The only person in the world who knew who Eleanor Vance truly was. Margaret arrived that night at 11. I took a cab to the bus terminal to pick her up without Julian and Victoria knowing. I had told them I had insomnia and was going for a walk, which lately was normal for my decline. I saw my sister get off the bus and almost ran to her. We hugged in the middle of the terminal, surrounded by the smell of diesel and the murmur of tired travelers. "Relax, sister," Margaret whispered in my ear. "I am here now. No one is going to hurt you." We went to a hotel near my house. I did not want Julian to know she was in the city yet. We needed a plan. In room 304 of the Ivory Hotel, we sat on the double bed, and I showed her everything. Every photo I had taken of the folder. Every message. Every documented lie. Margaret scrolled through them on my phone, shaking her head in disbelief. Her eyes filled with tears. "That bastard," she muttered. "How is this possible? Julian, your son. I do not know what to do anymore, Maggie. Tomorrow is the appointment with the psychiatrist. They are going to try to commit me. I am scared." My sister took my hands. Her hands, smaller than mine, with the same prominent veins we inherited from Mom. "Listen to me carefully, Eleanor. Tomorrow I am going with you to that appointment, and if that fake doctor tries anything, I am going to testify. I am going to say that you are perfectly sane, that this is a fraud. Do you hear me?" I nodded, crying tears of relief. "We are going to take Julian down," Margaret continued, and there was anger in her voice. "We are going to show this evidence. We are going to call a real lawyer, the police if necessary. But you are not going to end up locked away. I swear." That night I slept at the hotel, in the same bed as my sister, just like when we were little girls sharing a room. For the first time in weeks, I slept without nightmares. 2 days later, on a Monday, my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. I answered. "Mrs. Eleanor Vance?" A male voice. Formal. "Yes, speaking. This is Mr. Davis, from Family Court. I am calling to notify you that your son, Mr. Julian Vance, has initiated legal proceedings to obtain guardianship over you due to mental incapacitation. There is a hearing scheduled for Wednesday at 10 in the morning. Your attendance is mandatory." I sat down slowly on the living room couch. Julian had gone straight to the court. "Guardianship?" My voice came out as a whisper. "That is correct, ma'am. We have testimonies from relatives and medical evaluations indicating that you require legal representation due to cognitive decline. Do you have a lawyer?" No. I recommend getting one before the hearing. Good morning." He hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand, in shock. Julian was not going to wait. He had accelerated everything. I called Margaret immediately. "I already know," she told me before I could speak. "Julian called me an hour ago. He asked me to be a witness at the hearing." "And what did you tell him?" Silence. "Maggie, what did you tell him?" "Eleanor." Her voice sounded strange, distant. "I need to talk to you in person. Can you come to the hotel?" I went. Margaret was waiting for me in the lobby, not in the room. That was already a bad sign. We sat in some secluded armchairs. She would not look me in the eye. "Sister," she started, and I already knew. Somehow I already knew what was coming. I spoke with Julian for a long time. He explained his side. His side? I could not believe what I was hearing. "He says you have been doing very poorly. That the evidence you showed me was because you broke into his office at night, which just proves your paranoia. That you are inventing conspiracies. Margaret, you saw the messages, the documents. How can you?" He also showed me videos, Eleanor. Videos where you look confused, where you forget things. Those videos are edited. I explained that to you. My sister finally looked at me, and in her eyes I saw something that froze my soul. Guilt, but also determination. Julian offered to help me, she said softly. $50,000. For little Timmy's surgery. Little Timmy, my 7-year-old great-nephew. He had heart problems. Margaret had been saving money for months for a surgery. He offered you. I could not finish the sentence. I need that money, Eleanor. My grandson needs it. And you have so much. Millions. What do you care about $50,000? I stood up. My legs were shaking. You are selling me out. Do not be dramatic. Julian says you just need to rest for a few months, that the clinic is nice, that you are selling me out for $50,000. Margaret stood up as well, defensive. You do not understand. He is my grandson. He could die if he does not get the surgery. What do you want me to do? You are going to be fine. You have more than enough money. But little Timmy, I would have given you the money, I said, my voice cracking. If you had just asked me, I would have given you double, triple, no questions asked, because you are my sister. I saw her face drop. How did she realize it just now? Eleanor. But you chose to sell yourself. You chose to sell me. It is not like that. On Wednesday, I interrupted her. You are going to go to that hearing, and you are going to testify that I am crazy, right? Margaret did not answer. She did not need to. I grabbed my purse and left that hotel. I walked down the street, aimlessly, for almost 2 hours. The only family I had left besides Julian had just betrayed me, for money, for $50,000. That night, sitting in my bedroom, I hit rock bottom. I had no one. Absolutely no one. Julian wanted to lock me up. Victoria despised me. Margaret sold me out. The whole world thought I was insane. I looked at my reflection in the vanity mirror. An old, lonely, shattered, defeated woman. But then I remembered something. I remembered the Eleanor from 30 years ago. The one who built a textile business from a rented little room. The one who negotiated with distributors who treated her like an idiot until she proved she was smarter than all of them put together. The one who lost her husband and did not fall apart, but managed the inheritance with such shrewdness that she doubled its value. That Eleanor was not dead. She was buried, but not dead. And it was time to dig her up. The hearing arrived on Wednesday. Margaret testified exactly as Julian wanted, but what neither of them knew was that I did not walk into that courthouse alone, and that the woman who walked through those doors was no longer the same one they thought they knew. I spent 48 hours without leaving my room after Margaret betrayed me. I did not eat. I barely drank water. Julian and Victoria knocked on my door every now and then asking if I was okay, and I answered in a weak voice that I just needed rest. Perfect, they must have thought. She is giving up. But what I was really doing was remembering. Remembering who the hell Eleanor Vance was before becoming just a mom. I closed my eyes and forced myself to travel back in time. 1982. 26 years old. Recently divorced. A baby just months old in my arms. No money, no help. Living in a cramped studio apartment in the South Bronx that smelled of mold and where hot water was a luxury. That Eleanor got a used sewing machine by pawning her wedding ring. She sewed evening gowns for boutiques on Fifth Avenue. She worked from 5 in the morning until midnight, with baby Julian asleep in a cardboard box lined with blankets. In 6 months, she had 3 machines and 2 assistants. In 2 years, she was renting a commercial space. In 5, she had a garment factory with 20 seamstresses and contracts with department stores. That woman did not beg. She negotiated. She did not cry when doors were closed on her. She looked for windows. She did not let herself be walked all over. She stepped right back. When had I forgotten that? When did I become this soft, docile version that Julian described as weak? When I met Arthur. When I stopped fighting every day to survive. When I allowed myself to be taken care of instead of taking care of myself. I did not regret those years. Arthur was good to me. He loved me genuinely. But by stopping being a warrior, I forgot how to fight. I got out of bed on Sunday afternoon. I looked at myself in the mirror. Messy gray hair, deep bags under my eyes, pale skin. But my eyes sparkled differently. There was no longer sadness there. There was calculation. I took my cell phone and searched my contacts for a name I had not dialed in 2 years. William Hastings, the lawyer who helped me manage Arthur's estate. A 60-year-old man, serious, meticulous, with that sharp look of someone who has seen every legal trap possible. I dialed. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Mr. Hastings? Eleanor?" His voice sounded surprised. "It has been a while. How are you? I need to see you. Urgent. And I need it to be completely confidential." There was a pause. William was smart. He caught the tone. "Are you in trouble? The worst kind you can imagine. I will see you tomorrow. 9 in the morning. My office." I hung up and took a deep breath. First move made. On Monday at 9 o'clock sharp, I was in William's office, downtown. Sober offices, with bookshelves full of legal codes, and the characteristic smell of old paper and freshly brewed coffee. William received me personally. He saw me walk in, and his expression changed. "Sit down, Eleanor. You look terrible." "I feel worse." I told him everything, omitting nothing. The 3 in the morning phone call, the folder, the messages, Margaret's betrayal, the hearing on Wednesday where my own sister would testify that I was demented. As I spoke, I showed him the photos on my phone. William reviewed them with growing indignation, adjusting his glasses every time something scandalized him more. When I finished, he leaned back in his leather chair and let out a curse I had never heard from him before. "Those sons of—" "Forgive me, Eleanor, but this is criminal, literally. Can you stop them?" "Stop them? Eleanor, we are going to destroy them." He stood up and started pacing the office. "This is fraud, forgery of documents, conspiracy to commit theft. Dr. Sterling could lose his medical license. Julian and Victoria could face criminal charges. I do not want to put my son in jail," I said, and was surprised to find that it was true. I was furious, shattered, but something in me still did not want to see him behind bars. "I just want to stop them, protect myself." William nodded. "Then we need strategic, fast, and silent moves." He sat across from me. "The hearing is the day after tomorrow. We do not have much time, but we have enough." He pulled out a legal pad and started writing. "First, today I will draft a revocable power of attorney, not in Julian's name, but to a trust that I will manage. This legally blocks any attempt by him to manage your assets." "Is that legal?" "Completely. You are still the owner of everything. You are simply appointing another representative, and since there is no ruling of incapacitation yet, you have every right. Second, we will request independent psychological evaluations. We will hire 3 different specialists from recognized institutions to examine you and certify that you are in full possession of your faculties. In 2 days? I have contacts. It can be done. Third, we present all this evidence to the judge. The messages, the folder, everything. This not only stops the guardianship process, but it opens an investigation into Julian." I stared at him. "Does this work in real life, counselor, or just in the movies?" William smiled at me. It was a wolfish smile. "Eleanor, I have been doing this for 35 years. I have seen families tear each other apart for a lot less than $5 million. But I have also seen women like you stand up and put up a fight, and they almost always win. Because the law, although slow, protects the one who is right. And you are right." I walked out of that office with a plan, with hope, with direction. But most importantly, I walked out with my power back. That afternoon, back home, I did something I had not done in days. I acted. I walked down to the kitchen dragging my feet, with my robe poorly put on and my hair messy. Julian and Victoria were having dinner. "Mom?" Julian said, and his voice sounded worried. "Fake, but worried. You have not eaten anything in 2 days." "Sit down." I sat down obediently. Victoria served me vegetable soup. "How are you feeling?" she asked with that sickening sweetness that now made me nauseous. "Tired," I murmured. "Everything confuses me lately." I saw them exchange looks. Satisfaction. "It is normal, Mom," Julian said, and put his hand on my shoulder. "That is why on Wednesday we are going to see the doctor, so he can help you." On Wednesday, I acted as if I were trying to remember. What day is today? Monday, Mom. Monday? Ah, Monday. I looked down at my soup. And is Arthur coming to dinner? Absolute silence. I looked up. Both of them were staring at me with wide eyes. Mom. I brought my hand to my mouth, as if I had just remembered. Oh God. It is true. I am sorry. I do not know why I said that. Victoria stood up quickly and hugged Julian. He looked pale. You see? She whispered to her husband, but loud enough for me to hear. She is getting worse. I ate my soup in silence while they muttered to each other. Inside, I was smiling, because they had just taken the bait. For the next 2 days, I kept acting. I forgot names. I mixed up dates. I asked about people I knew perfectly well were dead. Julian documented everything. Of course. More evidence for the hearing. But what he did not know was that I was documenting too. William taught me how to record conversations on my cell phone, how to leave it casually in the living room while they talked. On Tuesday night I recorded this. Victoria, did you hear how she asked for your dad? She is worse than we thought. Julian, better. It means the judge will not doubt it. With Aunt Margaret's testimony and this, it is a done deal. Victoria, and when can we sell the house? Julian, as soon as we get guardianship, 6 months maximum. I already have a buyer. JV Developments is offering $3.5 million. We will close fast. Victoria, perfect. I want to get the hell out of here. I want our own house, without this old lady controlling us. That night, I sent the recording to William. His response was immediate. We have them. Get some rest. Tomorrow, everything changes. I went to bed feeling calm for the first time in weeks. Because tomorrow in that courtroom, Julian would discover that his weak and submissive mother had died, and in her place had resurrected the Eleanor he never knew, the businesswoman. The fighter, the woman who did not let herself be, walked all over. When Julian walked into that courtroom on Wednesday, he expected to find a scared old woman. What he found was something he would never forget. And what happened over the next 3 hours left him speechless, without a plan, and with no way out. Wednesday morning dawned cold. Or maybe I was the one with cold blood in my veins. I got up at 6. I showered calmly. I put on an Oxford gray tailored suit that I had not worn since my businesswoman days. Straight-cut pants, fitted blazer, white blouse, low but firm heels. I pulled my hair back into a flawless bun, discreet makeup, pearl earrings that Arthur gave me on our last anniversary. When I came downstairs, Julian and Victoria were already eating breakfast. They both looked up and froze. Mom, Julian said slowly, why are you dressed like that? We have an important appointment, do we not? I want to look presentable. Victoria narrowed her eyes. Something in her instinct was telling her this did not add up. You look very formal. It is a courthouse, dear. I am not going to go in sweatpants. During breakfast I acted normal, neither confused nor lucid. Neutral. I drank my coffee, ate my toast with jam, read the newspaper. Julian kept staring at me. I could see the wheels turning in his head. At 9:30 we left for the family court downtown. Julian drove. Victoria rode shotgun, me in the back, looking out the window. Nervous, Mom? Julian asked, looking at me in the rearview mirror. Should I be? No, of course not. The doctor just wants to evaluate you. It is routine. Routine. As if locking your mother up were just any administrative procedure. We arrived at the courthouse at 9:55. A gray building, with hallways that smelled of legal paper and hopelessness. Julian took my arm, guiding me as if I were an invalid. We went up to the 3rd floor, courtroom 304. Outside, on the hallway benches, Julian's guests were already waiting. Margaret, my sister, in a navy blue dress and her eyes cast down. She did not say hello. Coward. Dr. Richard Sterling, with his gray suit and leather briefcase. He gave me a fake professional smile. And 2 other people I was not expecting. Mrs. Henderson, my neighbor from the corner, and Joe from the newsstand. The witnesses whose signatures appeared in Julian's folder. Good morning, Mrs. Vance, Joe said, uncomfortable. It is a shame about all this. I did not reply. I just nodded. A clerk came out of the courtroom. Vance family? Yes, Julian answered. That is us. Come in, please. The judge is waiting. We entered a small room, a dark wooden desk at the front, where Judge Campbell sat, a man in his 50s with a gray mustache. To the sides, chairs for us. Good morning, the judge said, reviewing paperwork. Guardianship proceeding, 1847-2024. Petitioner, Julian Vance. Alleged incapacitated person, Eleanor Vance. Alleged incapacitated. Those words hung in the air like insults. Take a seat. Julian sat on my right. Victoria on my left. Margaret, Dr. Sterling, and the witnesses in the row behind us. The judge looked directly at me. Mrs. Eleanor, do you understand why you are here? Perfectly, I answered, in a clear voice. Julian tensed up next to me. Your son is petitioning for guardianship over you, claiming mental incapacitation due to senile dementia. Do you have anything to say regarding this? I opened my mouth to answer when the courtroom door opened. William Hastings walked in like a hurricane, with his leather briefcase and 2 other men behind him. Apologies for the delay, Your Honor. I am William Hastings, legal counsel for Mrs. Eleanor Vance. Julian turned white. What? He turned to me. You hired a lawyer? Of course I did, I answered calmly. I am not an idiot, Julian. The judge banged his gavel. Order. Counselor Hastings, go ahead. William sat on my other side and opened his briefcase. The 2 men with him took seats in the back. Your Honor, before continuing with this fraudulent proceeding, I would like to present evidence that will prove this is not a case of incapacitation, but a conspiracy to commit theft. Fraudulent? Dr. Sterling stood up. I have personally evaluated the woman. Sit down, doctor, the judge ordered. You will speak when spoken to. William pulled out a folder, not brown like Julian's, royal blue. I have here 3 independent psychological evaluations of Mrs. Vance, conducted in the last 2 days by board-certified specialists from NYU Langone, Columbia Presbyterian, and Mount Sinai Hospital. He handed the documents to the judge. Julian tried to look, but William kept them out of his reach. The judge reviewed them in silence. Pages and pages of evaluations. His expression changed. It says here that Mrs. Vance has completely normal cognitive abilities for her age. Intact memory, unaltered logical reasoning, no signs of dementia whatsoever. That is correct, Your Honor. That is impossible, Dr. Sterling chimed in. I have evaluated her, and when exactly did you evaluate her, doctor? William turned to him like a shark smelling blood. Can you provide the date and time of that consultation? Dr. Sterling blinked. Well, it was. I have my notes. Do you have receipts? Clinic records? Any proof that Mrs. Vance ever stepped foot in your office? Silence. You have nothing, because you never evaluated her, William continued. You forged medical reports for money, and I have proof. He pulled out more papers. He handed them to the judge. WhatsApp messages between Mr. Julian Vance and Dr. Sterling, discussing the payment for services for forging documents. $1,000 per report. Dr. Sterling's face went from white to ashen gray. The judge was reading with a furrowed brow. Mr. Vance, he said, without looking up. What do you have to say? Julian opened his mouth. He closed it. He opened it again. That is taken out of context. Context? William pulled out another folder. What context justifies this? He placed the photos I had taken on the judge's desk, the mom commitment project folder, the messages, the fake contracts, everything. Your Honor, Mr. Vance and his wife have plotted for months to declare Mrs. Eleanor incapacitated to seize her properties valued at over $5 million. They even have pre-signed sales contracts in the name of a shell company they created themselves. The judge flipped through page after page, his expression growing more and more severe. Furthermore, William pointed at Margaret. They bribed my client's sister with $50,000 to give false testimony. Margaret sank into her seat. And these 2 gentlemen, he pointed at Joe and Mrs. Henderson. They signed statements they never read, deceived by Mr. Vance. Joe stood up. It is true, Julian told me it was to help his mom, to just sign it. I did not even read what it said. The judge slammed the folder shut. This is extremely serious. Julian jumped to his feet, desperate. Your Honor, my mother has been acting strange. She forgets things. She mixes up names. I swear it. Of course I swear it, I said, speaking for the first time in a firm voice. Because I acted. I acted exactly how you wanted me to look, so you would lower your guard. Everyone looked at me. Every silly question, every mix-up, every time I called Julian by his father's name. It was all an act, to see how far his betrayal would go. I saw Julian's face crumble. And it turned out, I continued, that my son was willing to lock me in a psychiatric ward and steal everything from me, for money. Victoria tried to interrupt, but William silenced her with a look. The judge stood up. This guardianship proceeding is hereby entirely dismissed, and I order a criminal investigation into Mr. Julian Vance, Victoria Vance, and Dr. Richard Sterling for forgery of documents, procedural fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft. The gavel's strike echoed in the room like a gunshot. Julian looked at me with eyes full of horror. But this was just the beginning. What came next would destroy him in ways not even he, with all his planning, had imagined possible. The courtroom fell completely silent after the judge's gavel strike. Julian remained standing, paralyzed, staring at me as if I were a ghost, as if the woman sitting across from him could not be his mother. You acted? His voice cracked. This whole time you acted? I learned from the best, I replied, and let those words sink in. You acted for months like you loved me, like you cared. I only acted for a few days. Victoria jumped up, her perfectly made-up face now red with fury. This is a setup. She manipulated everything. She seduced the lawyer. She bought the doctors. Ma'am, the judge cut her off with an icy voice. I suggest you keep quiet before you make your situation worse. There are already enough charges against you. Charges? I did not do anything. It was all his idea. Victoria pointed a finger at Julian. He planned the whole thing. I just supported him because he is my husband. I watched Julian look at her, betrayed. Now he knew how it felt. Dr. Sterling tried to discreetly get up to leave. Sit down. Doctor, the judge ordered. You are not going anywhere. Officer, please. A court officer who had been at the door stepped up and stood behind the doctor. Sterling slumped in his chair, his forehead shining with sweat. William took out another document. Your Honor, we also have this. He handed a paper to the judge. Power of attorney signed by Mrs. Vance 3 days ago, revoking any previous authorization and naming a trust as the sole representative of her assets. The judge reviewed it and nodded. Recorded and valid. What? Julian finally reacted. You revoked it? But I was in the will. The house is in my name in the will. It was, I corrected. Not anymore. You cannot do that. I can, and I did. I stood up, my legs steady, even though I was trembling on the inside. I also changed the beneficiaries of my life insurance policies. I transferred $2 million to accounts you do not know about, and I put the rest in a trust fund that Mr. Hastings will manage. That is revenge, Julian yelled. You are doing this out of spite. I am doing this out of survival, I replied, and my voice sounded calmer than I felt. Because my son wanted to lock me up like an animal to rob me. Because he documented me as a crazy woman. Because he planned to erase me from life. Julian dropped back into his chair. He covered his face with his hands. For a second, just 1 second, I felt pity. He was my son, the baby I carried, the boy I comforted when he had nightmares. But then I remembered the folder, the messages. Mom was always weak. The pity evaporated. Margaret, who had been quiet this whole time, finally spoke with a trembling voice. Eleanor, I am sorry. Really, I needed the money for little Timmy and $50,000. I cut her off without looking back at her. That was the price of 30 years of sisterhood. I hope it was worth it. Please, sister, do not ever. I looked at her then. A sister does not sell her sister out. A sister would have asked me for help, but you chose the money. Margaret started to cry. I did not care. The judge cleared his throat. All right, I am going to issue the rulings. First, the guardianship proceeding is completely dismissed. Mrs. Eleanor Vance retains full legal faculties over her person and assets. William nodded, satisfied. Second, a criminal investigation is ordered against Julian Vance, Victoria Vance, and Dr. Richard Sterling for the crimes of forgery of documents, procedural fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft. Dr. Sterling let out a sob. Julian just stared at the floor. Third, Mrs. Margaret Vance is ordered to return the $50,000 received as a bribe plus interest, and she is subpoenaed as a witness in the criminal trial. Margaret nodded through her tears. The hearing is adjourned. You are dismissed. Everyone started getting up. Julian approached me, his eyes red. Mom, please. We can talk. We can fix this. There is nothing to fix, Julian. I am your son. A son does not do what you did to me. I made a mistake. Victoria pressured me. I did not think things through. You had months to think about it, and every day you chose to move forward with the plan. Every day you lied to me, you recorded me, you documented me as crazy. That was not a mistake. That was a decision. Victoria approached as well, but not to apologize. She was furious. This is not over, she told me with a venomous voice. I am going to fight. I am going to sue you for everything. I am going to. You are going to shut your mouth. William stepped in, placing himself between us. Because every word you say can and will be used against you in the criminal trial. I suggest you get a lawyer. A good one. You are going to need it. Victoria glared at me, grabbed her purse, and stormed out. Julian stayed a moment longer, looking at me with something that looked like genuine despair. What am I going to do now? He asked, and his voice sounded like a lost child's. Where am I going to live? How am I going to pay for lawyers? I do not know, Julian. You will have to figure it out. Just like I had to figure out how to survive alone at 26, with a baby and no money. That is different. No, it is exactly the same. Only I did not have anyone to rescue me. You will not either. I walked out of that courtroom with my head held high. William by my side. The two men with him, private investigators who had helped gather evidence, trailing behind. In the hallway of the courthouse, I took a deep breath. My legs finally trembled, and William held my arm. Are you okay? No, I answered honestly. But I will be. We walked down the courthouse stairs. Outside, the midday sun hit my face. Freedom. This was freedom. William walked me to a cab. Eleanor, we need to talk about next steps. The criminal trial is going to be a long process. Julian will surely try to negotiate, and you need to decide what you want to do with your properties now that everything is protected. I know, but today I just want to go home, take these heels off, and drink a cup of coffee in peace. You deserve it. He handed me an envelope. Here are copies of all the documents. Keep them in a safe place. Thank you, William, for everything, for believing me. Believe? Eleanor, I have known you for years. I knew you were incapable of going senile. You are the most lucid woman I know. I got in the cab and gave him my address. During the ride, I looked out the window watching the city go by. My city. The same one where I built my life from scratch twice, and if necessary, I would build it a third time. But this time, it would be just for me. I arrived home knowing Julian and Victoria would come, knowing there would be yelling, begging, threats. But what happened that night exceeded everything I imagined. And it forced me to make the hardest decision a mother can make. I got home past 2 in the afternoon. The cab dropped me off at the entrance, and for a moment I stood in front of my door, looking at the house that had been my refuge for 22 years. Would it still be a refuge after today? I went inside. The silence greeted me like a warning. Too quiet. I went up to my room, took off my tailored suit and my heels. I put on comfortable clothes, jeans, and a loose ivory blouse. I needed to feel like myself. I went down to the kitchen and made myself a coffee. Real coffee, not the chamomile tea Victoria forced on me. I drank it by the window, looking out at the garden where Arthur used to prune the rose bushes on Sundays. I wish you were here, I whispered to his memory. I wish you could tell me what to do, but Arthur was not there. And this battle I had to fight alone. At 5 in the afternoon, I heard Julian's car in the driveway. Engine off, a slammed door, quick footsteps toward the front door. I took a deep breath. The door burst open. Julian came in like a whirlwind, with Victoria behind him. His tie was loosened, his hair messy, his eyes bloodshot. He saw me in the living room, sitting in my favorite armchair with my coffee, and something inside him broke. "How could you?" His voice came out as a choked scream. "How could you humiliate me like that? In front of the judge? In front of everyone?" "Sit down, Julian." "I am not going to sit down. You are going to listen to me standing then." He stepped closer, shaking with fury. "You turned me into a criminal. I just wanted to take care of you. Make sure that. Do not lie anymore." My voice came out calm, steady. "We are not in the courtroom anymore. There are no witnesses left. You can tell the truth. Just this once. Tell the truth." Julian stopped. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Victoria stepped in, crossing her arms. "The truth is, you are a manipulator. You made Julian look like a monster when he only wanted to help." "Help?" I stood up, setting my mug down on the table. "Calling a fake doctor at 3 a.m. to plan committing me. Is that helping? Secretly recording me and editing the videos. Is that helping? Creating a 186-page folder called Mom Commitment Project. Is that helping? You do not understand. I understand perfectly." I raised my voice for the first time. "You wanted my money, my house, everything I worked 40 years to build, and to get it you were willing to lock me up, drug me, erase me." Julian collapsed onto the sofa, his head in his hands. "It was not like that," he mumbled. "It did not start like that." "Then how did it start, Julian? Explain it to me. Because I need to understand at what point your mother stopped being your mother and became an obstacle." Silence. Long. Heavy. Finally, Julian spoke, and what he said was worse than any lie. "When Victoria and I got married, I thought living here would be temporary. A few months while we got our own house. But a year went by, 2, 3, and you never pressured us to leave. You said there was plenty of room, that we were family, and I got used to it. We got used to living in this beautiful house, in Westchester, without paying rent, having everything taken care of. And every time I tried to talk about moving out, Victoria would tell me, 'What for? Someday it will be yours anyway.'" Victoria glared at him. "Do not blame this on me. It is the truth." Julian stood up, confronting her. "You were the one who started saying Mom was old, that she did not need such a big house, that we could help her if you locked me up." I finished for him. "If they declared me incapacitated. If you got power over me and my assets." Julian did not deny it. He just closed his eyes. "At first it was just an idea, something we said when we were frustrated. But then Victoria met Dr. Sterling at a dinner party, and he mentioned there were cases where families managed guardianships to protect their elders. And Victoria said, 'Why not?' And you said yes," I added. "Not immediately. But she kept insisting, showing me articles on senile dementia, pointing out every time you forgot something unimportant. 'You see? Your mom is getting older. We have to act before it is too late.' And I started to believe it." "Lie," I said. "You did not believe it. You wanted to believe it because it was convenient." Victoria scoffed. "So dramatic. We acted for your own good. You were going to be in a nice, cared-for clinic, and we would manage your finances efficiently. We all won." I looked at her. I really looked at her, and I saw a woman without an ounce of remorse. "We all won? I won by losing my freedom? You won peace of mind, not having to worry about anything, like an animal in a zoo, like an old person who needs care. I did not need care." My scream echoed through the entire living room. I needed respect. I needed my son to look at me as a person and not a bank account. Julian stood up, coming closer with his hands outstretched in pleading. "Mom, I made a mistake. A horrible mistake. But I am still your son. We can fix this. I take it all back. We go back to the way we were before, and no." My voice came out cold. "There is no going back. Please. I am your only son. A son does not do what you did to me." I pulled out my cell phone and opened the photos I had taken. "You wrote this, Julian. Mom was always weak. This will be easy. I saw his face crumble. I was angry when I wrote it. You wrote the truth. What you really thought of me. Weak. Easy to manipulate. A rich nuisance. Those last words were said by Victoria in her messages, but I pinned them on both of them, because deep down, Julian thought the same. Victoria changed tactics. Her voice became soft, calculating. Eleanor, I know you are hurt. You are right. We messed up. But think about the consequences. If this goes to a criminal trial, Julian could go to prison. Do you really want that? Do you want to see your son in jail? There it was. Emotional blackmail. I do not want him to go to prison, I admitted, and I saw a flash of hope in Julian's eyes. But I also do not want him to walk away unpunished. What do you want then? Julian asked, desperate. Money? A public apology? What? I want you out of my house. Absolute silence. What? Victoria blinked. You have 3 days to pack your things and get out. I do not want to see you ever again. Mom, we cannot. We have no money. We have nowhere to go. You should have thought about that before planning to rob me. Julian fell to his knees. Literally. He knelt in front of me like when he was a child and had broken something valuable. Please, please, Mom, give me one chance. I will do whatever it takes. I will work. I will pay for therapy. But do not push me out of your life. You are all I have. For a second, just 1 second, I saw him as the 5-year-old boy crying when I dropped him off at school. The teenager who hugged me when he was scared. The young man who told me I love you, Mom, on my 60th birthday. But then I remembered the folder, the messages, the plan to drug me if I resisted, and the weakness evaporated. Get up, Julian. I am no longer your savior. I am no longer your bank. I am no longer the mom who forgives everything. Then what are you? His voice came out broken. I am Eleanor Vance, the woman who built an empire, and the woman who does not let herself be walked all over, not even by her own son. Victoria yanked Julian by the arm, furious. That is enough. Let's go. We are not going to beg this manipulative snake. But Julian did not move. He looked at me as if trying to find some trace of the mother he knew. Is there really no forgiveness? He asked with a cracking voice. Maybe someday, I answered, and it was honest. But not today, and not here. You have 3 days. On Monday I want this house empty of you two. They left, Julian dragging his feet, Victoria fuming. When the door closed, I collapsed on the sofa. My hands were shaking. My heart was beating so fast it hurt. Had I done the right thing? I did not know. But I did know that if I forgave them now, if I let them stay, I would never get my dignity back. They would never look at me as anything more than a weak old lady again. I slept restlessly that night, every noise in the house making me jump. And when Thursday dawned, I knew the real decisions were just beginning. What would come next would be the hardest part. Because forgiving a son who betrayed you is almost impossible, but letting him go completely is even worse, and I would have to find a middle ground between justice and mercy, between being a mother and being a woman, between love and dignity. The 3 days I gave Julian and Victoria to vacate my house were the strangest of my life. I could hear them packing upstairs, boxes dragging, hushed arguments that sometimes turned into shouting matches, Victoria blaming Julian defending himself without conviction. On Friday afternoon, Victoria came down with 3 suitcases and found me in the living room. I hope you are happy, she told me, with venom in every word. You destroyed your own son. I did not destroy him. He destroyed himself. Well, I am not going to sink with him. She adjusted her bag on her shoulder. I asked him for a divorce this morning. I am not going to be married to a loser with no inheritance. And there it was, the naked truth. Victoria never loved Julian. She loved the promise of $5 million. Have a good life, Victoria. You too, bitter old lady. She left, slamming the door. I would never see her again. Julian came down on Sunday night, with the last of his things. He stood in the entrance of the living room, holding a box. Mom? Yes? Is there really no way to? No, Julian, there is not. He nodded slowly. I saw tears in his eyes. Where are you going to go? I asked, because something maternal in me still needed to know. To a friend's house, temporarily. Then I will look for an apartment, something I can afford on my salary. Are you still working at the construction firm? For now. But when they find out about the criminal trial, they will probably fire me. I did not say anything. It was a consequence of his actions. Mom, his voice broke. I really am sorry. I know. Does that count for anything? Not yet. He left. He closed the door carefully, not violently like Victoria. And I was left alone in my house for the first time in 5 years. 2 weeks later, William called me into his office. I have news. The district attorney accepted our evidence. Dr. Sterling will face formal charges for forgery of documents and the illegal practice of psychiatric medicine. Will he lose his license? Almost certainly, and he will probably spend 6 months to a year in prison. Medical boards are very strict about these things. I felt satisfaction. Justice and Julian? William sighed. We can press criminal charges. The charges are solid, but, he looked at me over his glasses, we can also reach a settlement. Julian accepts guilt, does community service, pays a fine, and we avoid a full trial. What do you recommend? As a lawyer or as a friend? As a friend. As a friend, I will tell you that sending him to prison is not going to mend your heart. It will fill you with guilt, and he is not going to learn anything except to hate you. He was right. I knew it. I accept the settlement, I finally said, but with conditions. Which ones? That he signs a permanent waiver to any inheritance of mine, that he pays $25,000 in fines to the state, and that he does 300 hours of community service at a nursing home. William smiled. Poetic. I like it. The agreement was signed a month later. Julian accepted everything without arguing. Margaret, for her part, returned the $50,000 Julian had given her. She did it via bank transfer. No message, no apology. Later, I heard through a distant cousin that Margaret had been exposed to the whole family in Boston, that no one spoke to her, that she lived in shame. I did not feel pity. 6 months after that hearing in court, my life had changed completely. I sold the commercial space in Soho for $4 million. With that money, I created the Vance Foundation for the protection of older adults. We handled cases of family abuse, asset theft, and mistreatment. In 6 months, we helped 47 people. 47 elderly people who, like me, had been betrayed by their own family. Every story broke my heart, and every victory, every revoked guardianship, every stopped abuse filled me with purpose. I discovered that my pain could serve to heal the pain of others. Julian called me every week. He left messages that I did not answer. Messages that I kept but did not respond to. Mom, I finished 50 hours of community service. Mom, I got a new job at a smaller firm. It pays less, but it is honest. Mom, I rented an apartment in Astoria. It is small, but it is mine. Mom, I miss you. 6 months of unanswered messages. Until one Tuesday, a different one arrived. Mom, today I helped a man at the nursing home write a letter to his daughter. They had not spoken in 10 years. It made me think of us, about how pride steals our time. I am not asking you to forgive me. I am only asking you to let me try to be better, even from a distance. That night, for the first time, I replied, Main Street Diner, Saturday 10 in the morning. On Saturday I arrived early. I sat at my usual table, by the window, the one Julian had avoided that humiliating morning. Sarah poured my coffee with a knowing smile. She knew everything. The whole neighborhood knew. Julian arrived on time, thinner, with bags under his eyes, wearing simpler clothes than before. He sat across from me, nervous. Thank you for coming, he said. I ordered the coffee, I replied, pointing to his mug. The way you like it. With milk, 2 sugars. His eyes filled with tears. You still remember. I am your mother, Julian. Not your enemy. I will never forget how you like your coffee. We drank in silence for a long minute. I completed 200 hours already, he finally said. At the nursing home, it is hard. Seeing those elderly people all alone, abandoned, some by children who did what I wanted to do to you. And what have you learned? That family is not inherited, It is earned. Every day. I lost it. But I want to earn it back, even if it takes me years. I did not answer right away. I let his words float between us. I do not know if I will ever be able to forgive you completely, I finally said, with brutal honesty. What you did broke me in ways I did not know it was possible to break. I know, but I am not going to hate you forever either, because hate is heavy, and I have carried enough. Julian nodded, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. So, what are we now? He asked. We are two people who share blood and are learning to share respect. Nothing more, nothing less. Can I call you? Once a month. No more. Can I visit you? When you finish your 300 hours? And only if I agree. Can I try to be your son again? That question broke me a little. The son you were died, Julian. But maybe, with time, with effort, with genuine humility, maybe a new one will be born. One that I can respect. We stayed an hour longer, talking, no yelling, no begging, just two people trying to build something new on ruins. When we said goodbye, Julian gave me an awkward hug. I let him. Thank you for not giving up on me, he whispered. Thank you for starting to earn it back, I replied. Today, a year after that early morning when I heard my son betray me, I live alone in my house in Westchester. I drink real coffee every morning. I work at my foundation 4 days a week. On Saturdays, I go to the Main Street diner and sit at my table by the window. Julian and I talk once a month. Brief encounters, careful but honest conversations. We have not healed completely. Maybe we never will. But I learned something that no amount of money can buy. Dignity is not negotiable. Respect is not given away. And a mother's love, although eternal, must have limits. Because a mother who erases herself for her children is not doing them a favor. She teaches them that they can trample on the one who loves them. And I refuse to teach that lesson. At 69, I learned that it is never too late to defend yourself. It is never too late to demand what you deserve. And you are never, ever too old to start over. If this story touched your heart, if it made you reflect on family, respect, and dignity, leave me a comment telling me where you are watching from and what this story left you with. Have you ever had to set limits with someone you love? Did you learn that self-love is just as important as love for others? Write it down. Your words could inspire someone else who is going through the same thing. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share this story. Because sometimes the most powerful lesson is knowing you are not alone. The end.